Thank you very much, Suzanne, and thanks, Brad, as well, for the invitation to join you today. I'm a bit of a walker, so apologies for that and for the cards, but just thanks again for the gracious invitation. As the Cipher brief itself advertises, it's not about who's on the stage, it's about who's in the room. And I look around this room, and I have to say, never has that been truer than at this very moment. What an extraordinary group, and I look forward to meeting new contacts and reconnecting with old friends over the cocktails immediately following this. But in the meantime, if you don't mind, I'd like to take a few moments to share a few thoughts. So, as Margaret Mead once said, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed people can change the world. And indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. With leaders in industry, media, and government gathering together here to explore the challenges facing our nation, it's a great place to share ideas and gain new insights. And by way of background, I came to this job through a rather non-traditional path. So I've spent many, many years in government service leading multidisciplinary teams overseas conducting intelligence operations. And over the course of those years, I have witnessed the absolute transformation of the intelligence landscape. That came primarily through our adversaries' growing use of emerging digital technologies. I've seen our adversaries attempt to undermine confidence in our elections, hold critical infrastructure for ransom, steal the personal information of millions of Americans, and rob American industry of billions of dollars of intellectual property. I've seen how they leverage big data, and now artificial intelligence and machine learning, not only to strengthen their own economy, but also to undermine global competitors. And with each unprecedented event, I found myself asking the same question. Is this our digital Sputnik moment? The Soviet Union's 1957 launch of Sputnik, tiny satellite, about 200 pounds, size of a basketball, it captivated America's attention, and it galvanized a new sort of partnership between government and industry to win the space race. But was it really about the space race? I would say it really wasn't about space, well, at least not space alone. Yes, we sought to achieve new technological milestones before the Soviets, but it was really about global leadership, political, economic, military, diplomatic, cultural, and yes, technological leadership. Two competing visions for the future: freedom or authoritarianism, democracy or communism. So here we are, 6.5 decades later, and we are again in a race for technological superiority, this time largely in the digital realm. Whether we talk about AI and ML, blockchain, next generation wireless communications, augmented and virtual reality, somewhere on the horizon, quantum computing, we're really talking about global leadership. Two competing visions. One where technology serves society, and one where technology controls society. Liberty or autocracy, digital democracy or digital authoritarianism. And alarmingly, freedom is in retreat all around the world. Freedom House says, the global order is nearing a tipping point, and if democratic forces do not work together to stop this trend, the authoritarian model may well prevail. And the timeline for this trend it's a worrisome trend, but it's interesting. It's about 16 years. And if you think back, that parallels the rise of personal smart devices and the ability of authoritarian governments to track the movements of their citizens. A growing club of digital autocracies is imposing this kind of repressive political and cultural orthodoxies while intimidating their own populations. It's a recipe to quell dissent and maintain an iron grip on power. And these days, that power is increasingly developed, strengthened, and wielded by digital technologies. And just ask the countless hundreds and hundreds of millions who now live in surveillance states of the sort we once only imagined in dystopian novels. With surveillance and sensing technologies ever expanding, with cyber threats becoming more dangerous and pervasive, and with freedom itself in peril around the world, we face a growing range of threats in what is a treacherous digital landscape. And the most pernicious of these threats continue to radiate from the People's Republic of China. America's security and prosperity remain squarely in the PRC's crosshairs. And in recent years, by flooding the digital landscape, the digital environment, the Chinese have positioned themselves to undermine both. Their quest to become a global superpower has been bankrolled by soaring investments in what has become a really powerful digital arsenal. And that arsenal, including cyber, artificial intelligence, and then somewhere on the horizon, quantum computing, is empowering the PRC to not only exert greater political influence and bolster its military capacity, but intimidate regional rivals and power its own surveillance state. And they're not stopping there. Beijing is also striving for economic dominance, pouring additional resources into R&D and new technologies to strengthen its standing in the global economy and tip the scales of competition in its favor. Of course, we're America, right? We love competition. We think competition is good, and it is. But it's not just their technologies they're relying upon. A pillar of Beijing's growth strategy continues to be the brazen theft of our intellectual property, appropriating America's greatest technological achievements with impunity. PRC aggression across the digital landscape is persistent and pervasive. It's a sweeping campaign designed to compromise our security and competitiveness and chip away at America's economic might and political influence abroad. Make no mistake, at least in my opinion, this is America's digital Sputnik moment. As with the space race many decades ago, investments in education, technological innovation, and strategic partnerships will unleash America's unparalleled potential. And in the process, just as our past success in the space race demonstrated global leadership and the strength of American democracy, we have the opportunity to do so again. We will prove that ingenuity and creativity, supported within a free and open society with respect for civil liberties and the rule of law, can not only compete, but win. Education, technological innovation, and strategic partnerships. Frankly, we don't have much choice, and we have no time to lose. So I want to digress just for a moment from this broader discussion and at least humanize a bit some of the challenges we face in developing that next generation of technical talent. So allow me to share briefly the story of Ryan Daza, who's a 45-year-old resident of Washington, D.C. So not long ago, Ryan quit his job as an economist, and he founded the Capital City Robotics Club. So it's a nonprofit for engineering and technology-minded kids in the nation's capital. After converting his basement into a robotics workshop, Ryan searched for more space to expand the club. He got all sorts of great interest from kids throughout the neighborhoods, and this in a city where opportunities like this are scarce, particularly for the less affluent. So he canvassed the area, found great sponsors, the club flourished, and now it has about 200 participants ranging in ages from 5 to 15. They are as economically and culturally diverse as the city they live in. And earlier this year, they achieved their dream, which was to participate in the World Robotics Championship. So about 20,000 teams from 50 countries competed to participate. 2,300 teams got in. So 8 of Ryan's teams made it into the championship. They had great names, including one was Robo Kitties, another one was Unhidden Figures. And 5 of the teams were all girls. Now, not a single team won its individual division, but these kids are amazing, and I would say they're all winners in my book. Now, across government, industry, and academia, our country has devoted substantial resources to the development of first-rate technical skills. We were once the world's university, training STEM talent from all around the globe. Today, however, the volume and quality of China's postgraduate STEM pipelines is growing rapidly. Within the next 3 years, China will produce nearly double the STEM PhD graduates as the US. And if international students are excluded from the US count, they will outproduce the US by 3 to 1. So the Capital City Robotics Club, I find it a very heartwarming story. They're great kids, great guy. And these young people are our future systems engineers and data scientists and cloud architects. And wherever they find themselves 10 or 20 years from now, maybe in a startup or working in the national security community or engineering manned space flights to Mars, they will be on the front lines, right? Building and safeguarding technology in service of society. But I do have to wonder some days whether it will be enough. How can we develop our future generations of STEM talent, but do so at a scale to really compete effectively? This new digital landscape demands that we do more, and our rivals, frankly, are going all in. They're pushing all their chips to the center of the table, as they say. But just as we pulled together as a nation in the early days of the space race, we simply must redouble our efforts to develop the next generation of tech innovators and entrepreneurs if we hope to win this race. So in recent decades, as broader societies come to rely on digital technologies, intelligence collection by technical and now digital means has become increasingly critical for our success. At CIA, I will say a little immodestly, we have become what I would say world-class integrators. So we blend together technology, digital capabilities, and our traditional strengths in human espionage to gather insights into the plans and intentions of our adversaries. That's what it's all about, to understand what our adversaries plan and intend to do. The growing complexity of this mission and the transformation I've briefly described have compelled us to innovate and to adapt. And in our world, it really is innovate or perish. And here's our reality. Data has become the lifeblood of every intelligence service in the 21st century, including the CIA. And today, our workforce is in the eye of like a swirling information storm that will require real innovation to manage. And I emphasize real because there's a lot of hype around the word innovation. Real innovation. How we collect information, how we process, analyze it, protect it, underpins everything we do. It's a prerequisite for our success. And that's one of the many reasons developing the digital acumen of our own workforce, current and future, is so very important for us. Elevating the technical proficiency will help unleash the technical proficiency of our workforce, will help unleash the power of data for mission, and enable us to develop this kind of next generation leading edge digital solutions. And increasingly, those innovative solutions will involve human-machine partnering. Now, we first previewed this potential some 60 years ago when a new worker reported to an assembly line in New Jersey. I think it was General Motors, if I'm not mistaken. And the labor was considered very hazardous, right? It was moving die castings from an assembly line, welding them onto an auto frame. And there was a risk of inhaling toxic fumes or losing a limb. It was dangerous. But this new hire was undaunted, approaching his work with machine-like efficiency. And okay, no surprise to anyone here, that's because it was a machine. And in 1961, Unimate, as it was called, became the first industrial robot. So Unimate was celebrated across the country, even appeared on The Tonight Show, where I think it sunk a 20-foot putt on live TV, which was very impressive. But what was a novelty in the mid-20th century? Human labor augmented by machines has become a necessity in the 21st century. Machines are now a mainstay of our national security mission. From unmanned aerial vehicles with sophisticated strike capabilities, just ask Al-Qaeda and ISIS about that, to AI and ML applications to sort through vast troves of data across all the ints, as we say. We know that the power of AI for us is the power of transformation, the power to transform data into information and information into insight. And because these technologies are programmed to learn and improve, it's a power with an almost limitless potential. Indeed, one of my many takeaways from partnerships with private industry is that AI and ML technologies must and will be at the core of future efforts to manage the exponential growth of data. Their ability to automate intensive tasks, labor-intensive tasks, by sifting through the world's seemingly endless amounts of data will by necessity be the backbone of our future intelligence enterprise. Already today, the criticality of AI technologies cannot be overstated. At this very moment, our adversaries are weaponizing data science to undermine our operations, to undermine America's competitiveness, and even target our democratic institutions. So yes, I know what many of you are thinking. AI is still very much an emerging technology. Yes, there's a whole lot of hype, but notwithstanding that, we are all racing to harness the power of AI, from the cyber arena to the commercial marketplace, to battlefields, both cyber and digital, cyber and conventional. Today, private sector investment in AI is far outpacing government investment. And it probably always will at this point. But that's okay. This fight is about much more than resources. It's about ideas and innovation, entrepreneurial spirit, and the future. And it's about, there's kids in the Capital City Robotics Club, and it's about the men and women I have the honor of leading in the Directorate of Digital Innovation. Super proud of that workforce. They devote themselves to CIA's mission with energy, creativity, enthusiasm, and selfless patriotism. And like the public-private partnerships that have been at the heart of our space program, AI is one mission and one challenge where CIA, or frankly any other organization represented here today, cannot go it alone. For generations, government and industry evolved along parallel but distinct paths. The national security and intelligence communities have long attended to countering foreign military and intelligence threats and protecting our strategic interests abroad. And we've generally done pretty well. Government has been a force throughout the decades, spearheading all-out efforts to split the atom, to win the space race, cure global diseases, and shield democracy against the twin scourges of communism and terrorism. The American technology and business sectors have also long been powerhouses on the international stage, the engine of an economic superpower delivering groundbreaking innovations across every imaginable sector. Their determination and competitive spirit have driven our economic prosperity. Today, both our national security and our economic growth are threatened by a broad range of challenges, from traditional adversaries to a host of rogues and non-state actors. And in the 21st century, a very simple truth has emerged. Economic security is national security. And frankly, as we know, it has always been national security. The two are thoroughly intertwined. Weaken or destabilize one, and the other will surely falter. Now, the PRC, Russia, which I'm glad we're speaking about at our conference this week, and many others are striving to whittle down America's strategic and economic advantage. As they try to do so, everything we hold dear is in the balance. If we step back and consider how to navigate this range of threats arrayed before us, our path actually becomes pretty clear. We can look to the past, where our predecessors collaborated to tackle some of the toughest challenges facing our nation. And I have faith that we will do so again. One high point came in 1956, on the 4th of July, in fact. So in one of the most celebrated chapters of CIA history, a new aircraft lifted off from an airfield in West Virginia and flew deep into the heart of Stalin's Soviet Union. It was the maiden flight of the U-2 Dragon Lady, a product of America's technological wizardry and ingenuity. It was also the result of highly classified, unprecedented collaboration between the CIA and Lockheed. With the Soviets throwing an iron curtain around Eastern Europe, a high-altitude, high-speed reconnaissance plane was needed to give us a glimpse of the unknown, one that could fly high above Soviet and East Bloc defenses and capture evidence of Soviet military movements and manufacturing. Under the alias Skunk Works, the CIA-Lockheed partnership developed what became the U-2, an advanced photographic reconnaissance plane that could cruise more than 13 miles above the Earth. The U-2 program was a boon to an Eisenhower administration that had virtually no window into Moscow's buildup of strategic bombers and other nuclear forces. The collected imagery painted a stark and telling picture, and it was used to calibrate America's strategic forces to counter those of our most capable rival at the time. But that episode was no anomaly. Time and time again, as our country has faced great challenges, public-private partnerships have been the key to unlocking success. From FDR's arsenal of democracy that powered us to victory in World War II, to those U-2 overflights of the Soviet Union, to Neil Armstrong's fabled moonwalk, and to the nearly unimaginable, unfathomable discoveries coming out of the Webb Space Telescope, collaboration has been the cornerstone of all of these triumphs, and partnerships will generate the innovation needed for future victories as well. As the CIA navigates this information storm that I spoke of earlier, we will seek out the capabilities that are foundational to the future intelligence enterprise. And yes, there will be artificial intelligence and machine learning and advanced computing among them. We will accelerate our efforts to fully leverage the power of data for mission. We will continue to pursue the development of AI to gain operational advantage, to help inform our analytic assessments, and yes, to help run a large business, a large organization. And we will focus relentlessly on tomorrow, because there's nothing less than America's future at stake. But we are not alone, and as we like to say, intelligence is a team sport. Government and industry simply must find a way to build a new model of strategic partnership, one rooted in that simple and fundamental principle: economic security is national security. We need to break what has frankly been a long cycle of simple transactional relationships and find a new path forward, one based on trust, transparency, and a shared commitment to the future of our democracy. Because in this game, it is frankly imperative that we play as a team. America's prosperity, our security, indeed our future, all hinge on the capacity of those in this room, our fellow patriotic Americans, and our allies, our like-minded allies all around the world, to work together, to collaborate as true partners. Freedom or authoritarianism, liberty or autocracy, digital democracy or digital authoritarianism. The choice is ours. The race is already underway, and we have no time to lose. Our digital Sputnik moment indeed has arrived. Thank you for allowing me to share your time today.
I thought that was great. Thank you for that. I think a lot of companies in the US don't think of adversaries. They think of competitors, they think of criminals.
Yes.
And that word adversary is almost outside the vernacular, outside of cybersecurity. They don't get it. But you painted a pretty stark picture of unfair competition. So I'm curious, as you think about our national and economic security, do global companies need to start picking sides and start becoming Western companies? Do you see an entrenchment necessary in order to succeed?
Yeah. I'm going to skirt that a little bit by saying that that would touch on, let's say, a policy conversation, but I would suggest this. Being a successful company and living by one's values are not incompatible ideas. I can't presume to know how each company should think about that. But I think it's something in this day and age that we have to consider. I think investors are increasingly interested in, what are the social values? What are the, not political, but what are the values of a company? I think that's all part of that kind of economic environment today, and I don't envy companies trying to make that choice. My goal today was simply to share that there is a dichotomy emerging, and it's becoming increasingly stark. Thank you.
Do you want to take the other one first? Okay, sorry, I don't want to hog the questions. I'm a politics professor, so like national security professionals, we think about the worst case scenarios. So when you're talking about digital authoritarianism, I'm thinking what America's done in tech innovation is create these enormous monopolies that are concentrations of power, and concentrated power is very easily transferable. So if we had permanent minority rule established in America, we'd be handing an autocrat all of those big five Silicon Valley companies. It would be an unparalleled degree of power to achieve overnight. Is that something that CIA is concerned about, that kind of internal threat to the US Constitution?
We have a very difficult mission, I will say. It is difficult to understand what our adversaries are planning, what they intend to do. We, however, have the luxury of not analyzing activities inside the United States. And so that is definitely your area, I would suggest, as a professor of politics. But I do think
domestic and
Understood.
international to the US Constitution. So.
I'm not trying to make light of it. You raise a good point, and I think this is one of those issues that we're just going to have to, study, discuss as a society, because there is a tension there, right? We have, free market, we have successful innovation, and how that's applied in, more authoritarian countries is a challenge. I do think we have advantages on our side. So a couple things I would say to that. It's not just, do they use our tech or not? And by they, let's just say this other block of authoritarian regimes. Do they use our tech or not? It's about how we're playing to our strengths, in my opinion. And I'm not a policymaker, but if somebody wants to chat over cocktail, there's a big sign here that says cocktail reception. I'm happy to do so. But we do have strengths. I think we have values, we have the rule of law, that's all a good. We have innovation, we have an ecosystem that creates, genius, that allows genius to develop. But we have something else. We have real strategic partnerships. We have alliances, we have common values. And without calling out any other specific country, this other bloc, what they have is transactions. They have, a deal. There's not a shared commitment to a common vision of what a positive future looks like. It is vying for power and influence, and it's negotiating transactions. And I think that's a value that we don't leverage enough sometimes.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
That was great, Christopher Alberg from Recorded Future here. Here I am. No, so that was great. So I love the data being the lifeblood of the intelligence enterprise. That's very good. Now, you mentioned AI a lot, and yes. I could nerd out as much as ever possible on that. I think I took my AI class 31 years ago. So, but at the same time, are you using it too much? Are you essentially saying AI equals IT here?
No, thank
we
you.
sort of fall into the trap where it really means nothing?
No, I'm using it very intentionally, and I can beat you. My last coding class was 38 years ago, and Fortran punch cards. So, no, I'm using the term AI intentionally. I'm not talking about IT modernization. I'm not talking about cybersecurity. I'm not even talking about data management, data strategy, and data engineering, and all that stuff that has to happen in order to leverage AI on secure systems. I am talking about AI. So I'm talking at the low end about automation, not the low end, but let's say the less advanced end, automation. How do we make business stuff easier to do? And at the high end, actually trying to extract insight. But what I think is important, and I'm glad you asked the question, because we're definitely not using it too much. We are still on this journey to develop capabilities at a level of maturity that I think is going to be necessary for us to compete effectively with the Chinese. PRC has a plan. The plan is public. Go read it, anyone who wants to see it. They will dominate the world in AI technology by the year 2030. That is their plan. And elements of that plan, or at least associated elements, have been mentioned already. So we know the Made in 2025 plan. There are lots of other things that are going into this. So they have a plan, and I think they're making progress, measurable progress. We have to have a plan, and we have to be aiming for some level of AI maturity before that date. I'm thinking about within the intelligence community. Now, broader American society, that's a slightly different conversation. I think that's an interesting one to have. But for me, when I say AI in the context of this discussion tonight, I really do mean artificial intelligence. I am presuming that all those other things that have to happen to get there have happened, are happening. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.